I was doing some research on the Suns preseason, just a deeper dive. And Devin Booker was 13 for 23 on pull-up jump shots in preseason. And I'm like, that's freaking insane. So like last year in the regular season, he was a hair under 50% on effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shots. And then he went way up to like almost 60% in the postseason. And then in the preseason, he's at like almost 75% in effective field goal percentage. I'm like, man, it feels like Devin Booker's kind of taking a leap. And then last year, in the regular season was the first time that it really dawned on me just how advanced of a playmaker Devin Booker has become in this phase of his career. And so as I was sitting down on the computer, I'm looking at Devin Booker's age, and I'm like, he hit all these crazy pull-up jump shots last year. Remember that Game 3, Game 4 sequence against Denver when he got like so outrageously hot? It was one of the hottest shooting streaks that we've ever seen from a pull-up jump shooter in the postseason. And I remember, though, the whole thing was like, and I'm guilty of this as well, we're all like, he's just not going to keep making these, right? Like, he's going to eventually start missing, right? And don't get me wrong, I don't expect him to shoot 75% on him forever. But, you know, people used to say that thing about Steph. He's never going to be able to just consistently shoot threes at this level, right? And I started looking at the basketball reference page, and I'm like, holy shit, like Devin Booker is only 26 years old. And Steph Curry in his 2015 MVP season, his first MVP season, was when he was 26 years old. And all I could think of is like, you could make a legitimate case that Devin Booker was the best player on the Suns last year. And I still think Devin Booker's a better player than I still think Kevin Durant's a better player than Devin Booker overall. I think he deserves that kind of like benefit of the doubt right now. But here's the thing, like if Devin Booker takes a leap and he becomes a better player than Kevin Durant, not through some sort of decline from Kevin Durant, but just through his own ascension to bona fide superstardom, that completely changes the calculus for everything surrounding this Phoenix Suns team. Because he is now playing like a top 5 player in the world and has been for a really long time. He played like a top 5 player all preseason. He played like a top 5 player all postseason. This is not a blip. This is a trend of Devin Booker ascending to the level of the players at the top of the league. And again, like we talked about all that pull-up jump shooting, but down the stretch, it was 3 playmaking possessions from Devin Booker that turned this game around. So we have a classic high pick and roll on the right side of the floor. 2 go to the ball. Again, we talk about this concept a lot, especially with the Suns. The idea of defending pick and roll 3-on-2 and the need to have a guy in the weak side corner that can like knock down shots, right? And we're going to talk about Josh Okogie in a minute because he hits this one. But like what ends up happening in a lot of these cases is when you put 2 to the ball. So like Devin Booker's got the basketball. He's dribbling to his right, coming off of a ball screen. The guy who's guarding him is trailing him from behind. In this case, I think it was Gary Payton. So Gary Payton's coming from behind. Kevon Looney, the screen defender, is up at the level of the screen to try to stop the Devin Booker pull-up jump shot that's going in every single damn time. Well, the low man is the player that is guarding Josh Okogie in the weak side corner. And he's coming over and he's basically defending the action 3-on-2. And in that case, if you don't have a playmaker that has the ability to make that cross-court skip pass to the shooting pocket for the shooter in the weak side corner. I've talked about that all summer long and all preseason long. The playmakers that are capable of making the cross-court feed over the top of the defense when teams guard pick and roll 3-on-2, because it's difficult to get high enough to make that pass. Usually the low man's a little bit of an athlete. Now, that's not necessarily the case with the Golden State Warriors in this particular game, but like there's typically a lot of length on the ball. There's length in the pick and roll defender, right? It's usually an athlete that's coming up to the level of the screen, an athlete trailing the play, and an athlete that's the low man. And it's difficult to get enough separation from the perimeter defenders to elevate over the top and make that pass. And Devin Booker was able to make that pass. Then on the very next possession, they run this interesting kind of like variation of Spain pick and roll with Eric Gordon, where Eric Gordon has the ball, he gives the ball to Devin Booker, they clear out. Nurkic comes up and sets the ball screen. After Nurkic sets the screen, literally Eric Gordon goes over and screens Kevon Looney. And on that play, because Eric Gordon screens Kevon Looney and Kevon Looney can't help Devin Booker on that pull-up jump shot, Steph Curry, who's the guy guarding Eric Gordon, has to basically hedge or show on that Devin Booker pull-up. And because of that, when he shows, Eric Gordon pops to the three-point line. Kevon Looney, because he's a big man, is accustomed to kind of staying in the ball screen action. He kind of leaks back towards the middle. Steph has to close out all the way to the wing. Devin Booker, on time, on target, hits Eric Gordon in the shooting pocket. Steph is too slow to close out, and he knocks down the shot. And then finally, the biggest possession of the game after Steph hits the three on the offensive rebound to get it back to one, or back to two, they go down, another Devin Booker, Yusuf Nurkic pick and roll, two to the ball, right? We have Gary Payton chasing over the top, Looney's showing high, Booker just elevates. This time they don't help as much. They don't aggressively help from the weak side corner. So Nurkic is able to catch on the run. Nurkic catches on the run and makes the driving layup. One of the biggest narratives surrounding this Phoenix Suns team is like, they need a point guard. They need a point guard. And don't get me wrong, like I think you saw the absence of Bradley Beal tonight when Kevin Durant was kind of not having a very great game by his standards. And so every single time Devin Booker went off the floor, there was kind of a crater in the Suns' kind of offensive flow, so to speak, right? And Bradley Beal is going to help with that just because it allows you to constantly have two of those guys on the floor. But they don't need a point guard. It's like talking about the Celtics needing a point guard. At the end of the day, it's your top tier ball handler, your number one guy that you're giving the basketball to at the end of the game, and his ability to make plays off the bounce for your team and to constantly get the defense in rotation, which allows you to make the right reads out of that and get quality shots. As long as you have that, you don't need a point guard. And so, like, again, like if Devin Booker is going to play like this, the way he's played now for the better part of a year, it's not about what you can get from the point guard position. Devin Booker is your primary shot creator down the stretch of these games. Devin Booker finished the game with 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists on 13 for 21 shooting. Did have 6 turnovers, is something to keep an eye on. But I just have been blown away by him. And again, like Kevin Durant struggled a little bit with the physicality of Golden State. Leaned on a lot of really tough, like fadeaway jump shots out of the post, and he wasn't making them. And look, here's the thing. Kevin Durant's going to figure it out. Kevin Durant, like just last season, shot 60% on pull-up twos. So KD's going to figure it out. But like if Devin Booker's going to be better than KD, that's fantastic news for the Suns. Because now you're not talking about, a single top 5 player and then another top 15 player and then another top 30 player. You're talking about 2 top 6 or 7 players before you get to Bradley Beal. That completely changes the math. Especially since the only other team that has 2 top 10 players in the league are LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and they're both on the tail end of that top 10, right? And if you have 2 players that are in legitimate conversation for being top tier superstars, that kind of flips that talent equation into a crazy direction. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub. And with DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at an even bigger basketball win. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter. Basketball's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code HOOPS. The crown is yours. I wanted to shout out Josh Okogie. So we talked about the corner 3. And again, that's the big thing. Like, like when this team is healthy, you have that question. It's like, are you going to put, if we have Beal, Booker, Durant at the 4, you need another perimeter player out there. And ideally, that's a guy who can guard at the point of attack and a guy that can consistently make the defense pay for not guarding him in situations like that, tagging the roller situation that Josh Okogie got the wide open corner 3. Well, the conversation kind of coming into this was like, do you want Josh Okogie, who's this like wrecking ball of an athlete who could do all these things but is going to struggle to make the offensive plays? Or would you rather have, Grayson Allen, a guy who's like going to be more reliable, allegedly, although he couldn't shoot tonight, but a more reliable, or an Eric Gordon as another option, a guy who's going to be more reliable to knock down those shots, but not bring you the same level of defensive upside that you get from Josh Okogie. And that was a big moment tonight for Josh Okogie to show that in a huge possession at the end of a game, when he was completely ignored in a 3-on-2 situation in pick and roll, that when Devin Booker trusted him to knock down the shot, he rose up and he knocked the shot down. And when you combine that with everything else he does, because he wreaks havoc at the point of attack with his physicality and his athleticism, slashing off the wing, like just catching and ripping and going to the rim. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but it has to do with this specific type of athlete. The transition drives that he had in this game, getting all the way to the rim, crashing the offensive glass. He had 4 offensive rebounds. Finished the game with 17 points. And like, if he's going to knock down the big corner threes when they matter, then forget about the some of the other issues that this roster has. If Josh Okogie is going to be available to help in those situations and reliable on the offensive end, that just solves a bunch of your problems. And this kind of goes back to the conversation we had surrounding Bruce Brown in the postseason last year. That little bit shorter, little bit stockier, stout, athletic wing with long arms, right? Not the tall, lanky, kind of like high center of gravity, Herb Jones, Jaden McDaniels type. I'm talking more like the fire hydrants, the guys that are like 6'6", 6'7", usually about 220 pounds or more, usually super long arms and freaky athletic. The Bruce Browns, the Terrence Manns, the Josh Okogies. We're seeing that type of player become immensely valuable in the modern NBA. And a huge reason for that, in my opinion, is as the game is spread out more and become more perimeter oriented and more skill oriented, you have a lot of thin players on the floor. Guys that aren't especially strong and stout at their position. And when you have a low center of gravity, it's extremely difficult to cut that player off on a drive. Does that make sense? Like, if you have a high center of gravity, if I slide my feet and I initiate some sort of contact, like a hip check or a little bit of a hand check, I can probably contain you in that situation. But if you have a low center of gravity, even if I do put my hand on you or I do kind of hip check you, you can blow through that because your center of gravity is low and you're bringing a lot of power to that drive. And that's what allowed Bruce Brown to like just rip through D'Angelo Russell all the way to the rim. That's what allows, a Bruce Brown or Josh Okogie or Terrence Mann to crash the offensive glass and be very difficult to box out because there's thinner, skinnier players that are trying to wrap their arms around and box a player like that out that brings that athleticism to the table. Again, we got to keep an eye on that because teams aren't going to respond to this one game with Josh Okogie hitting that corner three and then just start guarding him all the time. Like, they're going to ignore him a lot in those situations, and we'll see in the bigger picture if he can make enough of those shots. But I thought it was a super encouraging first game from Josh Okogie. And in general, a super impressive win for the Suns. You got nothing from Grayson Allen. Eric Gordon was ice cold until he hit those two late threes. I think one was on an offensive rebound, and then we talked about that kind of like weird, funky Spain pick and roll possession that they ran. Kevin Durant was 7 for 22 from the field. And as a team, you had 19 turnovers. And you went on the road into one of the hardest places in the NBA to win on the road, and you got to win. Huge win for the Phoenix Suns. I thought it was really impressive. Showdown with the Lakers on Thursday in LA. It's going to be a fun one. The Lakers are going to want to get a bounce-back win. It's a bad matchup for the Lakers because they have weak point of attack defense. I think that Thursday night game is going to be really fun. We will be breaking that game down immediately after it's over. One other positive note for the Suns, I thought Nurkic, again, defensively he was a mess, and that's something they're going to have to figure out. Did have a big late block, though, on Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga kind of randomly just decided to co-opt a possession in semi-transition, kind of forced things. But Nurkic made a nice play helping from the left elbow and came down and made a nice block. But he did rebound the hell out of the basketball. You saw his size be really imposing. Nurkic is legitimately very big. Had that big play on the roll late where he kind of caught the pass from Devin Booker on the slip and went to the basket. And you saw his screening be a factor in this game, his ability to get his perimeter players separation. And then just in general, shout out to Frank Vogel. He's done a really nice job breeding a culture of physicality and commitment to the defensive end of the floor from the Suns in training camp to this point.